From severe weather in the Pacific Northwest to hurricane season finally starting to pick up on the eastern Pacific Ocean to Tropical Storm Jangmi finally starting to intensify and likely to peak as a significant typhoon later this week, this is your Chunkita weather forecast. So, the weather is finally starting to get more active again, with severe weather likely today and Saturday, with a potential for a couple tornadoes, significant damaging wind gusts, and even some large hail. There is also the potential for a tropical system to form in the eastern Pacific Ocean next week, although it likely not be very strong as of the data we have now. And Tropical Storm Jangmi has now formed in the western Pacific Ocean and is expected to gradually to quickly intensify over the coming days. So anyways, let's get straight into this weather forecast. First of all, looking at the SPC severe weather outlook for today, you can see we currently have a slight risk of severe weather from eastern Washington into central and eastern Oregon, all the way into portions of western Idaho for today. We have a marginal risk of severe weather from northwestern Montana into northern Nevada, into central Oregon and Washington, all the way into more of northern and western Idaho. And we have another small marginal risk of severe weather, mainly for the Denver and Pueblo areas of central Colorado for today. We do have a low-end tornado risk for today from central Oregon all the way into southeastern Washington and a sliver of western Oregon. We have a 2% tornado risk in that area, so you guys could see a tornado or two today there. So make sure you have multiple ways to receive weather alerts, although the most significant threat today will be damaging wind gusts. You can see we have a 15% damaging wind risk from western Idaho into central and eastern Oregon and to eastern Washington. And we have a SIG 1 area from southwestern Idaho all the way into northeastern Oregon and southeastern and eastern Washington, where we could see some damaging wind gusts reach 75 to 85 miles an hour. So if you're in that area, make sure you prepare for some hurricane force wind gusts later today with these storms that form. And we also have a low-end risk of hail today. We have a 15% risk of hail from a sliver of western Idaho into southeastern Washington, all the way into central Oregon. They're mainly the same area as our tornado risk. So if you're in that area, you could see some scattered hail, mainly up to golf ball size today. We have a 5% hail risk from northwestern Washington, northern Idaho, and eastern and central Oregon and Washington for today. We have another one across the Denver and central areas of Colorado today. Not much severe weather expected in those areas, but you guys could still see some isolated large hail potentially up to the size of quarters. Tomorrow's severe weather threat is even lower than it is today. You can see the marginal risk of severe weather mainly from southwestern Arkansas into northeastern Texas, all the way into southwestern Kansas, into western Texas, and northeastern New Mexico. We have another marginal risk of severe weather from northeastern Colorado into the Nebraska Panhandle into southeastern Wyoming, and we have another marginal risk of severe weather mainly across northwestern Montana. We have no tornado risk tomorrow, so that's good news, but we do have a damaging wind risk tomorrow across all those areas. So in those areas, you can see some isolated damaging wind gusts around 55 to 65 miles an hour if the storms that occur. And there is also a low hail risk with some of those storms tomorrow, where there could be some isolated large hail potentially reaching up to the size of quarters tomorrow. Next, looking at our Day 3 SPC severe weather outlook, you can see we actually have a slight risk of severe weather across western South Dakota into the Nebraska Panhandle and two portions of northwestern Nebraska. Our marginal risk extends from southeastern Montana all the way into much of Oklahoma and north central Texas. And for our probabilities, you can see that there. They are mainly talking about wind and hail potential for Saturday, but you can see they're also talking about there could be a brief tornado potential if we look right here. And you can see eventually the storms will merge into a MCS, potentially with damaging winds into the evening there. There will be some good conditions, around 60-degree dew points into the mid-60s as well. There will be some good temperatures cooling off in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And there will also be some CAPE around 2 to 3 thousand joules per kilogram farther south, with dew points of the upper 60s. So if you're in the area across actually Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas there, I would watch out because there could be an upgrade to a slight risk in future outlooks. Next, looking at our Weather Prediction Center excessive rainfall outlooks, you can see for today we have a marginal risk of flash flooding from the southeast United States all the way into parts of the central Great Plains. We have another one across southeastern Florida and another one across the Idaho Panhandle all the way into eastern central Washington into central Oregon all the way into north central California. If you're in those areas, you can see some isolated flash flooding, so make sure you have multiple ways to receive flash flood warnings, but it doesn't look too significant for today. Going to our Day 2 excessive rainfall outlook, you can see a similar story tomorrow with a marginal risk of excessive rainfall across the southeast United States into portions of the central Great Plains, and another one across the Idaho Panhandle into western Montana and northeastern Washington. So if you're in those areas, again, make sure you have multiple ways to receive flash flood warnings, as you could see some isolated flash flooding across those areas, but it doesn't look too significant again. And next, looking at our Day 3 excessive rainfall outlook, you can see we have a marginal risk of flash flooding across portions of the southeast United States, and we have another one mainly across western and central Montana, although that does include north central Wyoming as well. So if you're in those areas, again, you can see some isolated flash flooding on Saturday, so make sure you have multiple ways to receive flash flood warnings, but none of these days look very significant for flash flooding as of now. Next, looking at the National Hurricane Center's website, you can see we have an area to watch in the eastern Pacific Ocean. You can see right now it has a low chance of development. Right now it has a 20% chance of development in 48 hours, so it likely won't really form into anything. Actually, it's a 20% chance for 7 days, so it will likely form into something next week, something tropical, but it doesn't look too significant as of right now. Next, we are going to look at the official track for Jangmi from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. You can see now is a tropical storm at 35 knots at 40 miles an hour. In about 24 hours from now, it's expected to be about 60 to 65 knots, which is a high-end tropical storm to low-end typhoon. And by the time we get to May 31st and the morning of the 31st, you can see it's going to be at 95 knots, which is 110 miles an hour, which is a borderline Category 3 equivalent typhoon. So that's when it's going to reach its peak intensity to the northeast of the Philippines, and as it continues to move north, it will start to turn east as it gets towards Japan. And those Japanese islands there, including Kadena, Amami Oshima, and Yakushima, will all see some significant winds, likely sustained winds around 50 to 60 knots, which is 60 to 70 miles an hour, and Kadena could even see some typhoon force sustained winds around 65 to 75 knots, which would be about 75 to 85 miles an hour. So make sure if you're in those areas you are prepared, because this will likely be a significant storm. This could also bring some heavy rainfall to your areas and cause some significant flooding, and as it moves through the Japanese area south of Japan. It could also bring some strong wind gusts, some sustained tropical storm force winds to a lot of southern Japan, and it could also bring some significant flooding to those areas, including Tokyo, which we will talk about in a minute. Next, looking at the satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Jangmi provided by Colorado State University, you can see right now it's looking pretty good on satellite. You can see there's some more thunderstorms starting to build up, and there's convection starting to wrap around the center. You can even see some thunderstorms and inflow getting pulled in. Looking at the past several hours here, you can see it's been organizing with some new thunderstorms, and there's been some more stuff wrapping around the center. Overall, it looks like it's starting to strengthen. It may be starting to strengthen a little bit as of now. It may be closer to 40 knots now, which is about 45 miles an hour. But the strengthening will really start to begin over the next 12 hours or so, when it will start to get towards the upper range of the tropical storm force winds within the next 24 hours. So make sure you keep paying attention to the official forecast for this, and I will keep you all updated on this system in future emergency updates. Next, looking at some of the hurricane models provided by Tropical Tidbits. This is the HWRF at around 10 a.m. today, which is about the time of recording this video. So you can see about now it's showing it's about at 35 knots, which is around 40 miles an hour, which is closest to its real intensity, and it has about 999 millibars. If we go to let's go to 18 hours out from the start of the model, you can see it's at 995 millibars, or at about 994, depending on what you want to say here, and it's about at 45 knots at this point, which is close to 50 miles an hour, and it continues to intensify. By the time it gets to 24 hours out at 1 a.m. overnight, you can see it's already close to 55 knots, which is 65 miles an hour for pressure of 991 millibars. And as we go into tomorrow at 36 hours, you can see it's still a high-end tropical storm. And then as we go into later that day, you can see it becomes a typhoon at about 48 hours out with a pressure of 980 millibars and a wind speed of around 65 knots, 75 miles an hour there. And then as we continue on this model run, it has a weakening a little bit before strengthening some more. And 66 hours out, it's at 80 knots, which is about 90 miles an hour and has a pressure of 966 millibars. And then as we continue to go out, you can see it reaches peak intensity around 90 knots, which is about 105 miles an hour, I believe, with a pressure of 962 millibars, and we can even continue out farther than that. It has it keeping its intensity for a while and growing before impacting portions of Japan, various islands near Japan, and it gradually weakens the system. It's still a typhoon as it impacts those islands, but eventually it weakens to a high-end tropical storm. And then that's the latest we have on this system, on this model. Next, looking at the GFS, you can see right now at about 1 p.m., which is the closest time it can find on this model run, you can see it has it being at about 50 knots, which is 60 miles an hour with a pressure of 991 millibars, so it has it strengthening more quickly. You can see by the time we get to the 36-hour out mark from the beginning of a model run, you can see it's already typhoon, with 65 knot winds, 75 mile an hour winds, with a pressure of 974 millibars, and it has it continuing to strengthen from there. And then by the time we get to 72 hours out, it's a 95 knots, 110 miles an hour, and it's already approaching a major typhoon status. And you can see it has it strengthening to a Category 3 equivalent typhoon with winds around 100 to 105 knots, which is 115 to 120 miles an hour. And you can see it then has it quickly weakening as it impacts those islands near Japan before eventually turning east and actually bring some tropical storm force winds to Japan, potentially even making landfall there over that small area in Japan, before eventually moving east to Costa Rica and bring some tropical storm force winds and significant flooding to portions of southern Japan, and it will continue to move east and expand, becoming an extratropical cyclone before moving very, very far east up towards Alaska. Now, if you're in Japan, you are probably wondering, well, what can I do to help prepare for this system? Well, Jangmi will likely bring at least some tropical storm force winds and significant flooding, around 100 to 300 millimeters in total. The last emergency update said centimeters and meant millimeters. But anyways, if you're in that area, make sure you have enough food for a few days, make sure you have enough water for a few days, make sure you have a battery-powered radio, make sure you do everything you would normally do for a significant storm with some tropical storm force winds. It won't be the worst storm, but make sure you don't go outside during it, as there will be some significant flooding, and it will also bring some strong wind gusts, potentially reaching up into the 60 to 80 mile an hour range, and you do not want to be outside in that. And if you're in those islands to the south of Japan, make sure you're preparing for a typhoon, as it could bring some typhoon for sustained winds to those islands there. Especially that one island called Kadena. And if you're on that island, make sure you prepare for a decently significant typhoon with winds sustained at 65 to 75 knots, which is about 75 to 85 miles an hour. But I will keep you all updated in future emergency updates on Jangmi. Anyways, that's the end of today's weather forecast. If you know anyone in the impacted areas for the severe weather storms today or on Saturday, make sure you let them know that there could be some severe weather, potential of a couple tornadoes, significant damaging wind gusts, and some large hail. If you know anyone in Japan, especially southern Japan or those islands owned by Japan just to the southwest and south of Japan, make sure you let them know that a significant tropical storm to a low-end typhoon is coming to the area and that they need to prepare. And if you can, send them a weather forecast so that they can stay updated. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next emergency update or weather forecast. Goodbye!